Hi, everyone. For anyone who's been working with DAOs, the question of their power structure is very much an open one. Are they decentralized? Are they decentralized enough? Should they be more decentralized? What does that even mean? The question of legitimacy is about the acceptance of an authority and the acceptance of a power structure. And with DAOs, it depends on the extent and on the way they are decentralized. But just behind this question of legitimacy, there is another one tightly related, which is the question of efficiency. Many people criticize DAO as organization, as organization that are less efficient than traditional business organizations. They are chaotic, they are messy, decisions are slow, and they go back and forth. Nobody knows what to do, and all that kind of issue that everybody here is probably familiar with. So in a sense, there is a tension between efficiency and legitimacy. Legitimacy relies on decentralization, but on the other hand, this very same decentralization can be a hindrance to efficiency. And of course, if a DAO, if an organization is totally inefficient, economically speaking, then it loses its legitimacy, right? So, hi again, my name is Phil. I'm the governance lead at Mangrove DAO, and today I'm going to walk you through some of the results that we've produced at Mangrove when we've been working on this very same issues. And I'm going to start by making a comparison between protocols and platforms. So I'm talking about Web3 protocols, crypto networks on the one hand, and on the other hand, web platforms. And through this comparison, we'll get to the point that I will make a statement that coin voting cannot work. I'm not talking about the fact that it's bad or it's plutocratic or that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the fact that it doesn't deliver the benefit, the upside, the outcome that we were expecting when we put it in place in the first place. And then I will move to efficiency, the efficiency part, and I will use the example of grants to imagine how we can develop more efficiency for DAOs. But let's start with protocols as platforms. So there is an obvious similarity between the two. In both cases, we have some sort of software infrastructure, and on top of this software infrastructure, we build good services that are being exchanged by different parties, right? So there is the base layer is the infrastructure, so it can be a platform, or it can be a protocol and a crypto protocol. There is another similarity, another thing in common, which is that very often they are double-sided, multi-sided or double-sided. What does that mean? This is the traditional illustration that comes with platform coming from the Harvard Business Review, where you can see the two sides. One is the producers, the other one is the consumers. Consumers come to the platform on the marketplace in order to access and to use, to rent, to buy, to consume a service or good that is delivered through the marketplace, through the platform. And on the other hand, you have obviously producers that use the very same platform in order to deliver their goods or services. And then you have a third type of stakeholder, which is the operator of the platform, and in most of the times, they are also the owner of the platform. And as such, they get to define the terms of use. They define who has the right to access as a producer or as a consumer, what are the terms of interaction, terms of engagement. So this is very ubiquitous. You can find that in, as I was saying, Web 2 and Web 2.0 with the platform like YouTube, like Amazon. Before that, even Amazon was working, Microsoft was working on the very same idea of platforms. And then you can see something similar with Web 3 protocols and crypto networks such as Uniswap. On the one hand, you have liquidity providers. On the other hand, you have, as a consumer, the DeFi trader, the person who wants to do a swap, or Filecoin with storage providers and storage users, right? So this is the very same analogy here. So what's the problem with that? So let's go back a few years ago when there was this famous article that maybe some of you read at the time, Why Decentralization Matters by Chris Dixon. And Chris was making the case of something called the platform life cycle. So according to this view, which is largely inspired by the reality that we can see every day, platforms go through a life cycle that starts with the necessity for them to attract quickly, as fast as possible actually, the critical mass of users on both sides. They need consumers and they need producers, right? If you have Uber with only riders or only drivers, it doesn't work. You need both at the same time, and big numbers of them in order to have the critical mass to kick off the network effect. So that requires a lot of effort in many compartments of the game, like having a slick UI or UX, and also subsidizing, in a number of cases, the service, or even offering it for free so that it attracts quickly a lot of people. So you need to mobilize a lot of capital in order to do that quickly. You attract users on the consumer side, and you cooperate with vendors, with producers on the vendor side, on the offer side. That's fine until there is a certain point that is reached. And this point is when the platform gets to dominate a market or a segment or a geo, and then things change. The relationship change between the platform and the owners and the rest of the network. They get to be profitable, right? They took on a lot of debt, or they raised a lot of money, and they need to be profitable. That's also their mandatory duty, their fiduciary duty, to deliver profit at this point. And in order to do that, they will move, they will change, the relationship with the stakeholder will change and will mutate. So on the consumer side, they will move from attracting users to extracting value out of users. Case in point, like one among millions, Facebook changing the terms of use of WhatsApp in order to access the metadata and sell it to advertisers. Right? This is typically a case of extracting more value once the users have been attracted. Same thing on the producer side, with Twitter killing off its API, their APIs, in order to kill the software client that made its success in the first place, or Amazon competing with the best-selling vendors on its platform, on its e-commerce platform, and doing the same, by the way, on the AWS. So that's a big problem. It's a big problem because one could say, well, it's free competition out there, and it's okay if they do that. If they have this kind of predatory approach, then they will be weak compared to new entrants that won't do the same game and that will be able to take some market share. It's not exactly the way platforms work. They are global. As Peter Thiel famously said, competition is for losers. Once you get to the domination at the global scale, then it's super difficult, if even possible, to actually dislodge and displace the incumbent. So we have a problem because this infrastructure is the very basic infrastructure of our digital life, and to a large extent of our material life as well. We entertain ourselves through the platform. We educate ourselves through the platform. We socialize. We move. We, transport. We feed ourselves. And there's practically no end to the extent of to the reach of platform today. So there's an issue of democracy. There's an issue of control of our means of living as social people or as individuals. And this is why Chris suggests that we can actually solve that by having crypto networks. And the idea of crypto networks is that we're going to make everyone owners through a token. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter so much to have this kind of predatory behavior. It's not going to appear because everybody will be aligned with the same interests materialized by the same token. Everybody will be incentivized to the growth of the network and through the appreciation of the token. That's the vision, right? And that's the motivation for years later, valueless governance token. This is what leads me to say that coin voting cannot work. So again, we know that coin voting can be used in many ways. It can be, criticized in many ways, that it's plutocratic, there is the issue of turnout, and so forth. But my point here is that if coin voting in the first place, if those tokens are made in order to align the different stakeholders in a complex organization, then it fails. Why is that? Because once people get the token, there are two possible ways of dealing with that. Take the typical airdrop. Users of a network will use the token, will receive the token. The vast majority of people receiving the token will just sell it, either on the producer side or the consumer side. They just don't care about that. They came to consume or to use a useful service, assumably, and that's what they're interested in. They will be very happy of the Christmas present, they will sell it, and they will move on. It's even more the case in the case of the producers. They are building a business. Their interest is not about investing in another business. So you will keep some of them, and effectively, you will have some people keeping the token, but it's very likely that the mindset of the people keeping the token will be the mindset of shareholders, of investors. They will have the same goals than the operators in the previous wave of web platforms. So what is the real answer, in our opinion? Is to introduce what we call multi-stakeholder governance. And this is something that is not so spread in crypto, but it's very familiar in a political organization and also in some economic forms of organization. I'm giving 3 examples here. One are international organizations that are indeed multi-stakeholder, governed by multiple classes of stakeholders. Take the W3C, for instance, the standard bodies that govern the evolution of web standards. You have individuals, you have firms, you have non-profit, you have public entities, and they all work together in order to define the standard of the tomorrow's web. Very famous and some system that everybody knows is bicameralism in modern democracies, like in the US, in France, in the UK, here in Germany. You have 2 chambers, 2 houses, and they represent something different. For instance, in the US or here in Germany, there is one parliament that represents the state or the lender, and another one that represents the people. And there is a system of check and balances between the two, and 2 different views of the same system, so that it's enriched and it prevents minority oppression. And to stay in Germany, there is also this beautiful thing called corporate co-determination, which means that for mid-size and large-scale enterprises, you have employees that are part of the board of the company, along with the shareholders. So a very different model compared to the Anglo-Saxon model. So I'm going to tell you quickly about what we do in Mangrove that is inspired by this type of political system. Mangrove, in short, is a DEX. It's a programmable order book DEX, meaning that when you make an offer on Mangrove, you post a piece of code, of Solidity code. And this piece of code is going to be called when a taker takes the offer, and it is going to be up to this piece of code to fetch the asset that is needed in order to settle the transaction. So without entering into the details that are not the topic of this call, the idea is that you have a universal DEX that can execute any type of strategy. So part of the stakeholders will be the developers of those strategies, along with the DeFi traders. And the third type of stakeholders are the people that build the whole system. So our system of multi-stakeholder governance relies on 3 different classes that have each one a third share of the total voting power. And for each class, they have their own consensus. The builders, the ones who are in charge of building the protocol and building the ecosystem, are a small-scale group. So we can have a type of consensus that is based on a cooperative, for instance, or a reputational system, cooperative being 1 person, 1 vote. And then you have consumers, investors, anyone who wants to actually be a co-owner of the project, and we can use, and we will use, the token voting system as usual. And the third part is the people who are actually, or the entities, delivering economic value by building strategies, and they are the third one. So if you think about, back to the analogy I was making with Twitter, that will be the people building the software client on top of Twitter, and that cannot be shut down from the system because they are part of the system at the governance level. Let me move for the last part of the talk to the efficiency subject, and I'm going to argue that grant missed the point. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have grant, obviously, but I'm saying that this emphasis that we have constantly on grants is ill-fated. And why is that? So I go back to my general schema about the platform. We have producers. Generally, the grants grow to the producers. We give grants, we allocate resources to people in order for them to build things on top of our infrastructure. That's how it's being used by most DeFi and non-DeFi base layers in crypto. And we expect them to actually build something useful thanks to this grant. So what are we doing? Again, show me the incentive, I will show you the outcome. We've seen the outcome of the incentive that is an airdrop. Here, what is the outcome of a grant program? Well, very likely we'll get 2 things. One is that we will get some bounty hunters in a large number. People will come because there is money to be made, and they will have a mentality, a mindset of gig workers. That's natural. That's what you offer. And then the other thing that you will create is a bureaucracy internally. It can be more or less centralized or decentralized, but it's still a bureaucracy. You got to be, as a protocol or as a DAO, you got to be responsible, accountable for the money that is going to be spent. So you got to be serious about how and to who you give money and what they deliver for that money. What we think is that we should move from this type of view of the ecosystem of producers to one that is much closer to the one that has been used successfully by traditional web platforms. There's a lot to learn about from their playbook. When Uber, YouTube, Amazon, and the likes launch a platform for producers, they do all kinds of things that rely or that are based around 2 main concerns. One, making sure that those people will make money. So instead of giving them money, the idea is that we will attract entrepreneurs that know that with their effort and creativity, they can actually build a long-lasting business on top of the infrastructure. So for a protocol like us, it's relatively easy because with the DEX, there are always fees, and this is a design decision to redirect fees and part of the fees to the strategies that are successful on the order book DEX. And the other concern, the other goal is to lower the friction for those people to build their stuff on top of the protocol. And then again, we can learn a lot from the playbook of platform or even traditional platform like the one that have been built by Hire. I don't know if some people are familiar here with this gigantic conglomerate doing more than 35 billion in kitchen appliance. They have reorganized themselves in 4,000 micro-enterprises like a mesh of DAOs, and this is something that we can do actually by organizing little structure in the form of DAOs inside the ecosystem. But I'm over time, so I'm going to stop here. Thank you, and I'm here for questions.
Thanks. Any questions?
Hi, thanks for the talk. That was super interesting. So, do I understand you correctly that you're saying that there is no way that the incentives of capital formation can be bundled, so to say, in the form of a token with the correct incentives for legitimate and proper governance of a protocol? Or do you still see any way in which a single token can represent those two incentive systems in a way that you would find legitimate and that investors would find appealing, so to say?
Well, I'm not a never kind of guy, so always a never, that doesn't work that well for me. And of course, there are all kinds of gray zones. What I'm seeing, and I've seen repeatedly in the space, is tokens being repeatedly presented as a way to govern in common, collectively, some resources. And I've seen repeatedly that it's actually not the case because they become an instrument, an objective in itself, right? And this is the main issue. And I can take just one quick example. Romain, who was, you got two French guys talking about governance today, but Romain, who was just before me, was telling me that there were more and more of this case of DigitDAO. I have very present in mind this kind of DigitDAO, which was a successful project with the goal of tokenizing gold. But at some point, with their very early and successful ICO, they had more in their treasury than the value of their market cap. So the token holders, who were supposedly also supporters of the project, suddenly became all shareholder activists and destroyed the DAO in order to recover the underlying asset. And that was the death of DigitDAO. This is typically the kind of thing that you can address, not by removing completely token voting on this kind of instrument, which has its role, but by balancing it.